I feel like, yeah, there's cons to either one. I feel like with Catching Fire, although I agree it would make more sense to split it because I remember it being kind of a slow-moving book, I feel like people, especially those who haven't read the books, would feel kind of odd because you know how Catching Fire, it has, another Hunger Games. And if you kind of had, like, movie 1 with games, movie 2, like, leading up to the Quell, and then movie 3 were to be another set of games, I feel like the tone or, like, the pace would be really uneven. But then at the same point, if you were to split Mockingjay, like, the reason I could see them doing it is because it's very much in structure like the 7th Harry Potter book, where the first half is Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Like, actually, I think IMDb, one of our interns told us this, IMDb lists Deathly Hallows Part 1 as a road trip movie, which it is in some ways because it's them preparing and, like, making all the preparations for the battle. And that's how I would see them splitting up Mockingjay with, like, here's our preparation to the Capitol, and it could, like, the final shot of Part 1 could be them, like, coming up on the Capitol. But then I feel like that would also cause a really uneven pace because it's like you'd have all this build-up, and then you'd have to wait, 6 months until the battle for Panem. So I think, like, the lesser of two evils would be splitting up Mockingjay. I think the lesser of two evils would be splitting up Catching Fire. Because I'd rather see Mockingjay. I feel like you need to keep with that, especially because you're introducing, Coin and all of District 13 and just that weird military precision, and I feel like you have to keep that going to the last film.
Yeah, I sort of agree.
Would you want it called Part 1, Part 2, or would you want them to give it, like, different titles? Like, would you want it to be Catching Fire, the Victory Tour, and then Catching Fire, the Quarter Quell, or would you want Part 1, Part 2?
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
I assume for marketing they just go with Part 1, Part 2, but, in the hypothetical world we're creating, I think, like, the campaigns would definitely follow your thinking where it's, like, it would show a very marked difference, and they sort of have the thing where, like, the next set of posters for, Part 2 of Catching Fire would be, like, maybe they, like, end by showing you who's in the Quarter Quell, and then that could be, like, they could make character posters and stuff, but... Yeah, I agree that there would definitely be like a difference in tone.
You could have just to call it, if you were doing Catching Fire, Part 1 is called Catching, and the other one is called Fire. That's one another. I don't think that's what they do.
The first one be Catching Fire and the second one be the Quarter Quell. It would totally depend. But I think really, the problem with splitting it at all is that it's such a tightly written series in terms of pacing that there are both many and no good split points. Like there's so many places that could be a cliffhanger that any of them would feel like, well, why didn't you split it here instead? Even the books themselves all lead into each other almost like, the Sopranos cutting off in the middle of a sentence is kind of how, the Hunger Games and Catching Fire both feel when you end them, because you're like, wait, what? But that's not the end of the scene? So I feel like the movies will kind of be like that no matter where you split them.
Yeah. I think it's a very strong argument for making it 3 films, though. I can understand that, like what they have is that they have the option, you lock it, I think that's right, you lock in the options with the actors for all 4 films. But in terms of, like, the arc of the story and the pacing, I can't figure out where they would split it, where anybody would be happy in terms of, like, even trying to structure a screenplay around that. I just don't see how that would work. I'm really unhappy with the idea of 4 films, even though I think an origin story, like what they're trying to do with all the comic book movies that came out, like, the origin Wolverine and stuff like that, it's not a bad idea because I love the idea of any new material from this author. But in terms of the books, I think that they should be 3 films that each one of them tells a very specific story and makes a very specific point. And I think that a 4th film would just be stretching something out that doesn't need to be stretched, no matter how facile the screenplay is able to tell that story. That splitting that up in many ways, I just don't see it, and I really hope they don't do it.
Yeah,
they could do like an Avengers type thing, and then they have a movie where Harry Potter, Katniss, and like Edward Cullen all team up together to save the world.
I feel like
I gotta
Katniss's
start
first
writing
act
that right
would be
now.
to shoot Edward Cullen, so...
With an
I
arrow.
will bet anyone $1 million that there is a fanfic of Harry and Katniss. I'm gonna go look that up.
I'm sure.
Right now, hold on.
I'm sure there is.